What if the problem is not that life is too hard, but that you have outgrown the version of yourself that is trying to live it? There comes a moment in every person's life when effort no longer produces results, when familiar strategies stop working, and when motivation alone is not enough. That moment is not failure, it is a signal that something within you needs to be rebuilt. Most people spend their lives trying to change the outside world. They want better opportunities, better conditions, better treatment, better timing. Yet the outside rarely changes until the inside does. Life has a way of matching who you are, not who you wish to be. When your results no longer satisfy you, it is not an invitation to quit, it is an invitation to grow. Rebuilding yourself is not about starting over. It is about starting deeper. It is about examining what you believe, how you decide, what you tolerate, and what you repeat daily. It is about recognizing that the habits that once protected you may now be limiting you. Growth often begins when comfort ends. This is not a message of blame, and it is not a message of pressure. It is a message of possibility. Because the moment you accept that change begins with you, you take back control of your direction, your standards, and your future. Personal responsibility is the moment a person stops looking outward for answers and starts looking inward for direction. It is the realization that your life, as it stands today, is largely the result of your own decisions, habits, reactions, and philosophies. This understanding can feel uncomfortable at first because it removes excuses. It takes away the convenience of blame. But it also hands you something far more powerful: control. The instant you accept responsibility, you reclaim authority over your future. Many people unknowingly give their power away by assigning responsibility to circumstances, people, or past experiences. They say their progress is limited because of where they were born, how they were raised, who disappointed them, or what opportunities they missed. While these factors may influence a starting point, they do not determine the destination. Personal responsibility is not about denying difficulty. It is about refusing to let difficulty decide your outcome. When you accept responsibility, you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What can I do with what I have?" Rebuilding yourself requires this shift because growth cannot occur from a victim mindset. If everything is someone else's fault, then improvement must also come from someone else. That position keeps a person waiting for permission, waiting for fairness, waiting for conditions to change. Responsibility replaces waiting with action. It says, even if I didn't cause everything in my life, I am responsible for what happens next. That mindset alone separates those who progress from those who remain stuck. Taking responsibility also sharpens awareness. You begin to notice patterns in your behavior, how you spend your time, how you respond under pressure, how you speak to yourself. You realize that results are rarely random. Income reflects skill and value. Health reflects habits. Relationships reflect communication and emotional discipline. When a person accepts responsibility, life becomes a feedback system rather than a punishment system. Every result is information pointing to what must change internally. This principle demands honesty. It asks you to admit where you have been careless, inconsistent, or undisciplined. Not to condemn yourself, but to correct yourself. Responsibility is not self-blame, it is self-leadership. Blame weakens a person. Responsibility strengthens a person. One keeps you trapped in the past, the other moves you toward the future. There is also a quiet confidence that grows when responsibility is embraced. You stop feeling helpless because you know your actions matter. Even small improvements feel meaningful because they are chosen rather than forced. You understand that progress does not require dramatic change, only consistent change. A slight improvement in daily discipline, repeated over time, reshapes identity. Responsibility teaches patience because it reveals that growth is a process, not an event. Personal responsibility also improves decision-making. When you know you must live with the consequences, you think more clearly, you choose more carefully, you begin to value long-term outcomes over short-term comfort. This mindset builds character, and character is the foundation of everything lasting. Skills can be learned, opportunities can come and go, but character determines whether those opportunities are recognized and sustained. When rebuilding yourself, responsibility becomes the anchor during uncertainty. Motivation fluctuates, confidence wavers, and circumstances change, but responsibility remains steady. It reminds you to do what must be done even when feelings resist. It teaches discipline over drama, action over explanation. People who rebuild successfully are not necessarily more talented, they are more accountable. Ultimately, personal responsibility is the gateway to freedom. The freedom to choose your response. The freedom to improve regardless of approval. The freedom to grow without permission. When you fully accept that your life responds to you, not the other way around, rebuilding yourself stops being a vague idea and becomes a practical daily commitment rooted in conscious choice and intentional action. Your philosophy is the quiet force operating beneath every decision you make. It is the collection of beliefs, assumptions, attitudes, and interpretations through which you view the world. Long before results appear in your life, they exist in your philosophy. That is why two people can live in the same environment, face the same challenges, and yet produce entirely different outcomes. The difference is not intelligence, luck, or opportunity. It is the lens through which life is interpreted. A person's philosophy determines what they expect from life and what they demand of themselves. If someone believes life is unfair and effort rarely pays off, they will naturally limit how much effort they invest. On the other hand, if someone believes that effort compounds and discipline creates opportunity, they will persist longer and work with greater intention. Philosophy quietly shapes behavior, and behavior eventually shapes results. This is why changing external circumstances without changing internal thinking rarely leads to lasting improvement. Rebuilding yourself requires a deliberate examination of the beliefs you have been living by, many of which were absorbed unconsciously. Some came from family, culture, past failures, or emotional experiences. Over time, these beliefs solidify into rules you follow without questioning them. You may not even realize they are guiding you. For example, believing that success requires suffering can lead to burnout. Believing that failure is shameful can prevent growth. Believing that you are just not that kind of person can quietly shut down potential. These philosophies do not announce themselves loudly. They operate subtly through daily choices. When your philosophy is weak, life feels reactive. You respond to events emotionally instead of intentionally. You drift rather than direct. Strong philosophy, on the other hand, gives you a sense of internal stability. You are not easily shaken by temporary setbacks because you understand that difficulty is part of progress, not evidence of inadequacy. You don't overreact to failure because your philosophy allows room for learning and correction. This inner framework keeps you grounded when outcomes are uncertain. Philosophy also influences how you use time. If you believe time is abundant and easily replaced, procrastination feels harmless. If you believe time is valuable and irreversible, you become more intentional with how you spend it. The same is true with responsibility, health, relationships, and learning. What you believe about these areas determines how seriously you treat them. Results do not improve until philosophy improves. One of the most powerful aspects of personal philosophy is that it can be refined. It is not fixed. You are not permanently bound to beliefs formed in childhood or shaped by past disappointment. Rebuilding yourself means consciously choosing better principles to live by. It means replacing excuses with explanations and explanations with action. It means adopting ideas that empower rather than limit. A stronger philosophy asks, what is this teaching me? Instead of, why is this happening to me? As philosophy improves, standards rise. You begin to expect more from yourself, not out of pressure, but out of self-respect. You stop negotiating with your potential. You understand that success is not owed to you, but it is available to you if you are willing to become the kind of person who earns it. This shift changes how you show up every day. Effort becomes purposeful instead of forced. Your philosophy also determines how you handle failure. With a fragile philosophy, failure feels personal and final. With a strong philosophy, failure becomes information. It becomes feedback rather than judgment. This distinction is critical because growth demands experimentation, and experimentation includes mistakes. Those who rebuild themselves successfully are not those who avoid failure, but those whose philosophy allows them to use it productively. When philosophy is aligned with growth, life begins to feel more coherent. Decisions become clearer because they are guided by principles rather than impulses. You no longer rely on motivation to move forward. Your philosophy carries you through inconsistency and doubt. Over time, this internal alignment creates external progress. Income, confidence, skill, and fulfillment rise not because life became easier, but because your thinking became stronger and more intentional. Small disciplines are the quiet, often unnoticed actions that shape the direction of a life. They do not demand applause, and they rarely feel dramatic, but over time they determine whether a person grows stronger or weaker. Transformation is not usually the result of one bold decision or a sudden breakthrough. It is the outcome of repeated choices made when no one is watching. Rebuilding yourself requires an understanding that consistency outweighs intensity and that daily actions matter more than occasional effort. Many people overestimate what can be achieved in a short period and underestimate what can be achieved over time. They look for motivation, inspiration, or perfect conditions before acting. Small disciplines remove the need for these things. They operate regardless of mood. Reading a few pages each day, improving one skill slightly, choosing a better response in a difficult moment. These actions seem insignificant in isolation, but they compound. Just as small deposits grow into meaningful savings, small disciplines accumulate into character, competence, and confidence. The reason small disciplines are so powerful is because they shape identity. Every action you repeat sends a message to yourself about who you are. When you keep a promise to yourself, even a minor one, you reinforce self-trust. When you consistently neglect small responsibilities, you erode it. Over time, this internal relationship determines how much you believe in your ability to follow through. Rebuilding yourself is not just about changing behavior, it is about restoring belief in your own reliability. Small disciplines also remove overwhelm. Large goals often feel intimidating because they demand too much change at once. This leads to avoidance or inconsistency. Small disciplines narrow the focus to what can be done today. They turn progress into something manageable. Instead of trying to transform your entire life, you commit to improving a single habit, a single skill, or a single decision. This approach reduces resistance and increases sustainability. There is also an emotional benefit to small disciplines. They create momentum. Progress, even minimal progress, produces energy. When you take control of small areas of your life, you regain a sense of agency. You stop feeling stuck because you are moving, even slowly. This movement builds confidence, and confidence encourages further action. In this way, small disciplines create a positive cycle that gradually replaces frustration with self-respect. Small disciplines also protect you from the danger of neglect. Just as positive actions compound, so do small omissions. Skipping learning, delaying responsibility, ignoring health, or avoiding difficult conversations may seem harmless in the moment, but over time they accumulate into problems that feel overwhelming. Rebuilding yourself requires recognizing that neglect is not neutral. What you fail to do consistently shapes your life just as much as what you do. Another important aspect of small disciplines is that they develop patience. In a world driven by instant results, discipline teaches you to value long-term outcomes. You begin to understand that meaningful change requires time and that frustration often comes from unrealistic expectations. This patience strengthens emotional control and reduces impulsive decisions that sabotage progress. Small disciplines also build resilience. When challenges arise, those who have practiced consistent effort are better prepared. They have habits to fall back on. They are accustomed to showing up even when conditions are not ideal. This resilience is not built in moments of crisis, but in ordinary days where discipline is practiced without immediate reward. Rebuilding yourself through small disciplines is ultimately an act of self-respect. It is the decision to treat your potential seriously. It acknowledges that your future is shaped by how you live today, not by what you intend to do someday. Each disciplined action becomes a vote for the person you are becoming. Over time, these votes accumulate into a new standard of living, thinking, and behaving, quietly transforming your life from the inside out. Learning is the foundation upon which personal growth is built because it expands both awareness and ability. Without continuous learning, a person relies only on what they already know, and what they already know eventually becomes outdated or insufficient. Rebuilding yourself requires the humility to admit that current knowledge, no matter how valuable it once was, may not be enough for the next stage of life. Growth begins the moment curiosity replaces complacency. Many people associate learning only with formal education, but true learning is intentional and self-directed. It happens through reading, listening, observing, reflecting, and applying. Every new idea has the potential to upgrade the way you think, decide, and act. Learning reshapes perception. It allows you to see options where you once saw limitations and solutions where you once saw problems. When knowledge increases, so does confidence. Because confidence is not blind belief, it is informed belief. A lack of learning often leads to stagnation. When people stop learning, they rely on habit and routine rather than thought and adaptation. They begin repeating the same behaviors while expecting different results. This creates frustration, not because life is unfair, but because growth has stalled. Learning reintroduces movement. It refreshes the mind and challenges assumptions that quietly restrict progress. Rebuilding yourself requires challenging the comfort of familiarity and embracing the discomfort of growth. Learning also strengthens decision-making. Every decision is based on what you know, what you believe, and what you understand. Limited knowledge leads to limited choices. Expanded knowledge opens new pathways. As you learn, you begin to anticipate consequences more clearly and recognize patterns more quickly. You make fewer impulsive decisions because you understand long-term implications. This shift alone can change the trajectory of a person's life. Another important aspect of learning is its role in adaptability. The world changes constantly, industries evolve, technology advances, expectations shift. Those who fail to learn are eventually replaced by those who do. Rebuilding yourself means preparing for change before it forces you to react. Learning allows you to remain relevant, capable, and valuable in an unpredictable environment. It transforms uncertainty from a threat into an opportunity. Learning also reshapes identity. When you consistently invest in learning, you begin to see yourself as a growing person rather than a finished product. This identity encourages experimentation and resilience. Mistakes become part of the learning process rather than proof of inadequacy. You stop fearing failure because you understand that every experience contributes to understanding. This mindset reduces anxiety and increases persistence. There is also a moral element to learning. When you learn, you increase your capacity to contribute. Knowledge enhances your ability to solve problems, help others, and create value. Rebuilding yourself is not only about personal gain, it is about becoming someone who can offer more to the world. Learning expands your influence because it deepens insight and improves communication. Learning must be applied to be effective. Information alone does not transform a life, action does. Rebuilding yourself requires translating what you learn into daily behavior. This process may be slow, but it is powerful. Each applied idea strengthens competence and reinforces confidence. Over time, learning becomes integrated into your lifestyle rather than treated as a separate activity. When learning becomes a habit, growth becomes inevitable. You no longer wait for life to teach you through hardship, you proactively prepare through understanding. This approach shortens the distance between where you are and where you want to be. Learning becomes the bridge between potential and performance, steadily elevating your thinking, your skills, and your ability to shape a better future. Adversity is often misunderstood because it arrives uninvited and rarely feels fair. It disrupts plans, challenges confidence, and exposes weakness. For many, adversity becomes something to escape, resent, or fear. Yet, when viewed correctly, adversity is not an enemy but a teacher. It carries lessons that comfort cannot provide and reveals strengths that ease never demands. Rebuilding yourself requires learning how to interpret difficulty not as punishment, but as preparation. Every challenge forces a response. That response shapes character more than the challenge itself. Two people can experience the same hardship, yet one becomes bitter while the other becomes wiser. The difference lies in interpretation. When adversity is seen as a curse, it drains energy and narrows vision. When it is seen as instruction, it sharpens focus and builds resolve. This shift in perception is essential for growth. Adversity exposes patterns that success often hides. When things are going well, habits are rarely questioned. Comfort allows weaknesses to remain unnoticed. Pressure, however, removes illusions. It reveals how you manage stress, how you speak to yourself, how you treat others when outcomes are uncertain. These revelations are not meant to shame, but to inform. Rebuilding yourself requires awareness, and adversity provides it with brutal honesty. Difficult moments also develop resilience. Strength is not built in ease, it is built through resistance. Each challenge you endure increases your capacity to handle future challenges. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable, and what once felt impossible becomes familiar. This gradual strengthening does not happen by avoiding hardship, but by engaging with it thoughtfully and persistently. Adversity also clarifies priorities. When life becomes difficult, distractions lose their appeal. You become more aware of what truly matters and what has been consuming energy without purpose. This clarity is valuable because it redirects focus toward what deserves attention. Rebuilding yourself often begins with removing what no longer serves you, and hardship accelerates that process. Another lesson adversity teaches is responsibility. While you may not choose every circumstance, you always choose your response. Difficulty removes the option of passivity. It demands decision, effort, and accountability. This demand can feel uncomfortable, but it restores a sense of agency. When you realize that your response influences the outcome, even in limited ways, you regain control over your direction. Adversity also cultivates humility. It reminds you that growth is ongoing and that strength is developed, not assumed. This humility opens the door to learning, adaptation, and support. Those who resist adversity often isolate themselves, while those who learn from it become more grounded and open-minded. Rebuilding yourself requires this openness because growth rarely occurs in isolation. There is also a refining aspect to hardship. Just as pressure shapes raw material into something stronger, adversity refines character. It tests patience, discipline, and integrity. Under pressure, Values are revealed. You learn what you stand for and what you are willing to work for. These insights shape future decisions and strengthen self-respect. Adversity does not define who you are, but it contributes to who you become. When used wisely, it becomes a turning point rather than a stopping point. Rebuilding yourself involves extracting meaning from struggle and using it as a foundation for growth. Each challenge carries a lesson, and each lesson, once learned, becomes a tool for navigating life with greater strength, clarity, and purpose. Achievement is often mistaken for success, yet achievement is only the visible outcome of a much deeper process. Becoming is the internal transformation that occurs while pursuing goals, and it is this transformation that determines the quality and sustainability of success. Rebuilding yourself requires shifting focus from what you want to get to who you need to become in order to earn and sustain it. What you achieve can be lost, but what you become stays with you. When people chase achievement alone, they often measure progress by external markers such as money, titles, recognition, or possessions. These markers can be motivating, but they are incomplete. Without personal growth, achievements become fragile. A person can reach a goal without developing the discipline, mindset, or character required to maintain it. When challenges arise, the achievement disappears because the person has not changed enough to support it. Becoming is about developing the qualities that naturally produce results. Discipline, patience, resilience, emotional control, and clarity are not rewards, they are prerequisites. These qualities are built through effort, repetition, and self-awareness. Each challenge faced during the pursuit of a goal contributes to this internal development. Rebuilding yourself means valuing these internal gains as much as, if not more than, the external outcomes. The process of becoming also creates independence. When you focus on who you are becoming, you stop relying on specific circumstances for validation. Confidence grows because it is rooted in capability rather than outcome. You trust yourself because you have proven your ability to learn, adapt, and persist. This trust remains even when goals change or plans fail. Achievement can fluctuate, but personal growth provides stability. Becoming also reshapes motivation. Instead of being driven by pressure or comparison, you are driven by alignment. Your actions reflect your values rather than your fears. Effort feels meaningful because it contributes to your evolution. This shift reduces burnout and increases fulfillment. You are no longer chasing success to prove worth. You are building worth through growth. Another important aspect of becoming is that it expands capacity. As you grow, what once felt difficult becomes manageable. Responsibilities that once felt overwhelming become routine. This expansion allows you to pursue larger goals without increasing stress proportionally. Rebuilding yourself involves gradually increasing your capacity rather than forcing immediate results. Becoming also influences how you handle failure. When achievement is the primary focus, failure feels devastating because it threatens identity. When becoming is the focus, failure becomes part of the process. It is seen as refinement rather than rejection. Each mistake contributes to wisdom and strengthens resolve. This perspective encourages experimentation and courage. Focusing on becoming also improves relationships. As you develop emotional intelligence, communication skills, and empathy, your interactions improve naturally. These improvements are not strategies but reflections of growth. Rebuilding yourself strengthens not only personal outcomes, but also the quality of connection with others. Ultimately, achievement is temporary, but becoming is cumulative. Titles may change, income may fluctuate, and circumstances may shift, but the person you become carries forward. Rebuilding yourself means committing to continuous development rather than isolated success. When you prioritize becoming, achievement becomes a byproduct rather than a burden, and success becomes sustainable because it is supported by character, capability, and purpose. As we come to the end of this message, remember that rebuilding yourself is not a single decision made in a moment of inspiration. It is a daily commitment made in moments of choice. It is the quiet decision to think better, act better, and demand more from yourself than you did yesterday. You are not defined by where you started, what you lost, or what didn't work. You are defined by what you are willing to become from this point forward. When you accept responsibility, refine your philosophy, practice small disciplines, commit to learning, grow through adversity, and focus on who you are becoming, you begin to build a life that is strong from the inside out. The world responds differently to a person who has rebuilt themselves, not because life becomes easier, but because that person becomes stronger, wiser, and more intentional. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your willingness to reflect. I wish you the courage to rebuild, the discipline to stay consistent, and the patience to trust the process. Good luck on your journey forward, and thank you.